Lego. Absolutely everything you need to know. Stacks of Lego facts. I was really excited to get this book at the public library. I've seen it on bookshelves and at Costco for years, and I always kind of like wanted to read through it, but it was kind of a lot of money, so I never got around to it. So I'm really glad that my public library had it, and now that I've read it, I really love this book. I mean, it was just chock full of fun facts and information and a lot of things that I had no idea about, and I really recommend it to those like beginner readers, those kids who can read books beyond just the picture books. And it's a great way to encourage them to read because you're going to learn about Lego, something they're interested in. You're going to learn about the history of different sets and the company itself. In fact, we begin with chapter 1, bricks and pieces. And what it actually starts out with is the beginning of the Lego company, where they weren't making these plastic building toys, but these wooden toys that they would originally created. And I think the duck is probably the most famous and well known, but they did do other toys that were very popular. In fact, one of the things that also people aren't realize is that plastic playtime is Lego being a plastic toy, but it was actually, back in the day, most toys were made out of wood, and Lego was one of those companies that really saw the future of plastic and started making the plastic toys. And so there's just lots of fun little facts about here about not only Lego toys we play with, but the company itself. And then we move on to the actual system that Lego used to create the toy that we've all come to love. And this system, and it's about, you know, the first original pieces and how they were packaged, different times, but also the system that they used to make sure that every piece, from the piece your parents used to your grandkids will use, always will fit together because they fit within this grid here. And this grid makes sure that you can make these three-dimensional models and they all work together, and how a minifigure is going to be 4 bricks high, and how everything is based on this brick. This brick is the key. It's the center of Lego, and that's just about the system itself and how it works. And then we move on to the elements. And you're going to see these timelines throughout this book, and they're really interesting because they're like, it's when like a particular set, a particular piece, or an idea comes about. And here you kind of see when these different ideas came out with Lego. Like the first archway here was in 1971, and then the jumper plate came out in 1978, and I thought that was like a newer developed piece. I didn't realize it was so old. And then things like the tooth plate I actually thought was much older, so it's interesting to see how, like, when these pieces actually came out. And then even this, like the brick on 2 sides to create the corner, is a relatively new piece back in 2017 when this book was published. So this is a really new piece that I thought had been around for several years. And of course we have to talk about wheels because Lego is very proud of their wheels and how they make more wheels for their Lego products than are made in real life, and kind of the different history of wheels. And you're going to see these top 5 things. And now a lot of times they're subjective, but every now and then they're kind of a cool top 5 because it kind of introduces like a new piece or a new building technique. And that's when I love the top 5s, when it's more historical rather than something that's just more about opinion and how we created a whole new wheel for this Star Wars vehicle. And that's interesting because Lego doesn't often make a whole new piece to create a vehicle, and it's the fact that they did it for this vehicle is interesting. And then we have the Lego color charts. You can see all the different colors, and these are the original classic colors: black, blue, green, yellow, white, and red. And that's kind of what we start out with. Now as time goes on, we're getting more and more colors for different pieces. And then we have the path to power. And I thought this is really interesting because I know right now with the Super Mario theme, there's a very big push about how, you know, modern Lego is, but they've been doing that for years. And back in 1957, they were already kind of playing with, you know, radio-controlled cars, movements, playing with the latest things, whether it be radio-controlled, electrical-controlled, computers. Like, they've just really gone with technology. So even though we think of them as these, like, you know, basic plastic building toys, they really have integrated technology throughout their existence. So it's not something new. They truly do just go with the times. They make sure they're relevant for each generation. And here we talk the electrical powered sets they have, like the carousel, this robotic dinosaur they created, a windmill, which as we know kind of is like helping with them produce their green technology. And speaking of green technology, we come to brick botany, and I really love seeing like these original trees that Lego had, and they're so different from what we see today. But they also talk about not only like the type of tree it is, but how common or uncommon it is. These clearly are very rare, and this tree is actually pretty common. Then we get here to the Technics, which has been around since 1977. I didn't realize the Technic had been around that long. I thought it came out around the 80s, like late 80s, not late 70s. So the Technic building system has actually been around a lot longer than I thought. And of course, you know, as we know, if you make your homes, you've got your windows, your doors, fences, cabinets. And then we move on to plenty of pieces. I've got to move through this book because it is huge. I've got a lot of information to get through to show you and see if you want to get this book for yourself. We got the Taj Mahal. When this book came out, the Ultimate Collector Millennium Falcon just come out. I have the Firehouse, and this is one of my favorite sets. I use it so often. I think it's in like over half my stop motion videos, so it's been a great set. And then we have the awesome accessories, the different accessories that minifigures have kind of come out with over the years, and just a few. It's a sampling, and you know, we talked about the gun here because Lego is not about making war and violence fun, and so you know, to actually have a minifigure gun is actually a big deal. And then nice part use, and if any of you watch my micro build tutorials, you know I'm all about finding new pieces and how to use that piece. And here, you know, you've got like a train track, but why don't you use that to make the rings around a UFO? So I'm all about, you know, finding interesting ways to use a piece. And after we get that, we come to building worlds. And this is where we get to the different sets and themes that Lego's created over the years and kind of their history. And of course, you're gonna start with Duplo because that's where builders begin. They go to the Duplos before they move on to the Legos. So we start with Duplo and we move on to sites of Lego City because, you know, this is really the core of Lego, building those houses and vehicles. That's what Lego kind of originally was before we got all these other themes in there. And then we go on to calling the cops because the police have been a very big part of Lego history. And funny enough, like when the police came out, they didn't have criminals for years. And, you know, and then they weren't introduced till much later in the Lego history. So it's kind of like, what were these cops doing for so long? And what's cooking, different restaurants, food mobiles, the types of food pieces, kind of the older sets that had them. The hot dog piece, how the hot dog piece is actually pretty old, but the bun is relatively new. In fact, it wasn't until 1998 that well, actually, hot dogs were around since 1998, but the bun didn't come out till 2016. So, how those two pieces are kind of fun. Then we have Island Life with Ninjago. Ninjago is a very big theme with Lego, which is funny because I think a lot of times they actually have been trying to get rid of it, and fans just won't let it go. So, Ninjago is going to be a part of Lego history for a long time. Out of this world, space. I mean, for me, space is what drew me to Lego as a kid, and even today, I love the space themes, whether it be mythical, fantasy, or the more realistic space stuff from NASA. And speaking of history, you've got making history with their medieval knight themes, and interestingly enough, they have like top 5 pieces found in the Lego castle sets. These are like pieces that originally were developed in the castle theme, and that I like. I love this top 5. It's like something like, oh really, the fire piece, interesting. In 1993, that flame piece came out. Capturing castles, here's that timeline I talked about where you can kind of start at 1978 with their first yellow castle, and it goes all the way down to 2009 because we actually haven't had a castle theme for a while. And Ahoy Mateys, the pirates theme, very popular, and how these musket pieces and the cannons were first developed for the pirate theme, and the monkey who always appears in the theme. And of course, Star Wars. It's hard to do Lego without Star Wars. They've been around since 1999, and it's still going strong. It's probably the largest like sub-theme or theme of Lego, and it was the best-selling for years. Then we move on to the hospitals and like the syringe piece that was created. We've got Behind the Mask with the Technic pieces to create Bionicles, and how Bionicles actually has like one of the deepest backstories in history of any Lego theme. Then we move on here where we talk about the Friends and how the Friends was developed, where you've got the Lego dolls, and how this originally was like launched in 2012, but a couple years later it became a full theme by itself with sub-themes, and it's just kind of taken off. And of course you've got the architecture series, which is always fascinating, from the White House to the London skylines. I love the architecture series and the detail they put in these things. And firehouses, of course, you have to talk about the history of the fire, and these piece particulars, it goes in the history of the blue and red flames of the firehouse, and you have to have a Coast Guard to build your city on the beach, a little Baywatch minifigure. Home Sweet Home, the different homes have kind of come out over the years, and how it's not only about the outside but the inside of the sets, and how they tried these little like inside play dolls for a while, in the Haunted Mansion. And this is like one of my dream sets because I started collecting right when this theme was retired, so I missed the Monster Fighter series, so I would love to get that haunted house. Joined Up Thinking, this talks about how, like, you know, the whole modular buildings came about in 2007, 2017, the different, how they all click together so you could buy one every year and just kind of create a bigger and bigger city. And interesting, this white lamppost is in every modular build because the gentleman who's head of the theme doesn't want to see this piece retired, so he keeps putting it in the set so they can't retire it. You've got the underwater dive-in themes, and they put in the Yellow Submarine. You know, I realized I've got to kind of get through this book fast because, like I said, it's huge, it's great, and I want you to kind of get a good look at it, see if you want to buy it and look at it in greater detail. We're going into here to the Nexo Knight theme, and here's one thing. When this book came out, the Nexo Knights were still around, and I feel like Nexo Knights will be like just kind of like a footnote in LEGO history, but because this book came out and it was still around, they get a lot more mention than I think they would normally have in a LEGO history book, just to be the timing. You've got Minecraft. Again, this is a very popular thing, but I think it'll be more of a footnote in LEGO history than an actual part of LEGO history. A set for all seasons. We talk about how they have the different sets, whether it be, you know, for Star Wars Day in the May, or Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, but how they just celebrate the different holidays all year round. A trip to Miniland, and I was actually lucky enough to go to Legoland once, and these mini builds are so amazing. The detail that these master builders put into them is just phenomenal. So if you can ever see these in real life, I highly recommend it. Fantasy Forest, we talked kind of these doll themes went into a more fantasy realm, and this was a heavy push in conjunction with Disney because they actually put the show on Disney. At the movies, we already talked about the Ghostbusters Firehouse, but we've got Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, and just LEGO's really done a good job of integrating the themes. And here we go to cars, planes, ships, and trains, which is, again, another thing, a staple of LEGO's, and does deserve a whole chapter by itself. You can kind of see the development from the 1978 police car, where you've got to kind of sit out and there's no roof, to the remote control car as of today. And can you dig at the construction series? That these are a lot of Technic pieces and how big they were. Built for speed, you got your different race cars. And then we're going off-road. So we got the different off-road builders, including the Digger here, some fantasy vehicles as well as real ones. And you've got the superhero vehicles. I think this one's pretty well known. The Steamroller has appeared in a lot of the Batman video games. The Wonder Woman jet is another one of those sets that I would love to get just because of all the translucent pieces she comes with. And of course, you can't have superheroes without Batman and all his Bat vehicles, and a whole top 5 dedicated to just the Batmobiles. And then we've got different cars, the Ghostbusters 2 fire car, the Mystery Machine, and then some of these are not like these were sets in themselves, but the Simpsons car and Ron's car were actually parts of larger sets, so it's not just like the car sets. You got the large planes, and this one was actually remote controlled, so it could actually move the rudders and have more animation with it. Yeah, I realized I looking at the time how long this video is taking me, but we got the stepping up gear, so the movement involved, radio controls that LEGO's always been playing with. Station to station, I think trains are very important. They've been a huge part of the LEGO history from 1966, 2010. These are some of the original passengers that have been on the trains, rolling the stacks, just more trains. Set sail with our boats, very important boats because LEGO has done basically planes, trains, and automobiles. They've done all the vehicles, whether real, where like you've got this one which is actually created for each individual different airline, to more your fantasy hot air balloons and adventure series and flying Pegasus. You got the Ninjago in the air. Big step mechs, and now I've never been a big mech fan, but it's kind of interesting to see how these things have developed over the years. Knights on the Move, and again, here's where we get Nexo Knights again. They get more attention in this book than I think future books will have. You got To the Moon and Back, because space is very important in the LEGO history, and here you can kind of see the development of that from the 70s 80s from when I was a kid collecting to the 2010s when they did the Galaxy Squad stuff. Parking in space, but it's not about spaceships and flying. You also got to go on the moons and the planets. And of course, if you're going space, you have to go Star Wars. And you got all the cool different ships that Star Wars created. I remember I got to see this displayed, this Imperial Star Destroyer at FAO Schwartz, and it was awe-inspiring. I love the Star Wars Slave ones here, and not a big fan of like the fourth stage, but the rest are really cool. The Ground Wars of Star Wars, the cooler, ultra cool sets where you kind of see when it first came out about 1999, 2000, different sets they've created. And this is interesting because they're playing the Death Star 2. Remember when that came out, it was like a big deal because people were complaining because they basically added a couple, like a minifigure and a few extra sets and charged a lot more for it. So it felt like more of a money grab than an improvement from the one they had. Oh, this is like the biggest X-Wing fighter. They actually built this in New York's Times Square. So this is all Lego pieces. And that's how big it is. I mean, that would have been a cool thing to see. A little fancy voice, some different vehicles here. Minifigures, monsters, and more. Now this is the thing, like these are not all minifigures. There's actually these build-up of creatures that they include in this book. And here we kind of go to the small beginnings, how they started out. You kind of see like the plain faces, even here, how they had no movable pieces. They're just kind of like buildable characters, different things they've tried with minifigures, and then making them. This is interesting, but they talk about how they go from like the concept of the idea to sketches to the molds to all the different process till you actually see it in your store shelf. And that was a really fun read there. And then of course you have your spacemen. Minifigures through the ages, so this is more like the historical. This isn't mostly a Lego timeline, it's an Earth timeline from 10,000 BC when we have cavemen to the 21st century. We come in peace the different alien minifigures we've had over the years, and how this is one of their original aliens. So it really wasn't a minifigure at all because it had no minifigure pieces. It was more like the battle droids from Star Wars. Magical minifigures. Of course, you have to have Harry Potter in there. And minifigures first. Now this is an actual minifigure timeline. We talk about the pirate who actually got a beard. It's like one of the first times they actually did some kind of detail on a minifigure. The first beard piece, which I thought was very fascinating. And then we've got the Wild Bunch. And again, this is kind of where I feel like this is a note to the Legend of Shima. And I feel like the Legend of Shima is kind of like Nexo Knights. It'll be a footnote of Lego history, but not like a big part of it. And then we have the Lego creature pieces, and I love seeing all these different creatures they have created, and they're creating so many more. I just love the Lego creature piece collection. And then fashion statements, just the different costumes that these minifigures have worn over the years. Of course, you have to have Star Wars. Again, one of the major themes and a huge part of like Star Wars is history, Lego history, because it's kind of created the whole theme spin out. I think because of Star Wars, Lego's been more into doing themes with other movie franchises. And all walks of life, different careers these minifigures might have. Ninjago, the Ninjago minifigures, the dinosaurs, which we've really seen a lot of because they do Jurassic World now, and a lot of Jurassic World minifigures mean a lot more dinosaur minifigures. So yay! Creatures that we build, I was talking about earlier, like the building of different creatures. And then this is interesting, like these are like the original, like how they had Santa and the elves before they had the minifigures of him, but the Mixels. And the Mixels really utilized the ball joint, and the ball joint is a very new thing with Mixels, but they, Mixels get a good shout out here, and kind of like their importance in the Lego history, Ghost Sports, because, you know, even if it's a monster, it's just about the different sports that Lego's covered, and how they've actually done like special like sports teams, where they've done an entire like winning team, or done a winning coach. And then the monster, the minifigure monsters, most of them were CMF series, but there were some non-CMF series here. And then all shapes and sizes, and this kind of shows you the different things that these aren't minifigures, but they're different figures that Lego has done. Even like something like this is more like a doll, this is more like Barbie, but they've done more than just minifigures and tried different things. Fact packed, just little things like this is like the largest, had the most minifigures in any castle set. the different shields that they've had over the years for the different knights, and how there really wasn't a bad guy. They were all just whatever you wanted to do until the Wolf series came out. Up until then, it was like, they're good, bad, whatever you want, doesn't matter. But this is like the first time we actually had a bad guy in the castle theme. Again, we got the Nexo Knights here. You got your small but mighty heroes, and then from the heroes, we're gonna go to villains. And then the build bad guys. Because again, these aren't minifigures. These are big characters because they don't have any minifigure parts. In order to be a minifigure, you have to have 2 of 3 minifigure parts, which is the legs, torso, and head. And then girl power, how the DC Super Friends were made into the doll pieces. And now we're going beyond the brick. And beyond the brick is where we talk about other things, like here's the family history. Why they ended up doing what they did, the factories burning down, having to rebuild. At one point, like Lego not only made toys, but they made ironing boards and ladders. And then the beginning of bricks. This is how they actually create a brick, from the little tiny pellets of plastic to being melted down, to being molded, to being cooled, to being packaged, and then put into the individual sets. And then some of us know the boxing is and packaging can be very clever with Lego, and how this one was actually shaped like a tube for a dog. This is like the largest set ever. It was actually part of a prize where like pretty much every Shima set was put into one box. Then we've got I made this. There's some things like that they talk about how the builders like to put little things of themselves in it. Like the creator actually put his own face on the farmer, and just things like that, where they'll give, this was actually designed after the creator's dog. So just how the Lego creators like to put a piece of themselves into it, whatever that might be, their faces, their initials, their birth date, things like that, fun things they do. Then it's just more about like actual large Lego creations, how there's one store that actually creates a mosaic of your picture, of your face. So you take a picture and then a mosaic is created of it. So that was kind of fascinating. And then just Lego Land around the world, the different theme parks, and how each theme park has kind of like a different plug. So like even though you've been to one, you can go to another one and still feel like you're going somewhere new. And then we've got the Fantastic Ideas set, and this is a throwback. This is talking about their Ideas series, which lets Lego fans like ourselves create sets and have them put up as possible sets. If you get 10,000 people to vote for it, then the Lego team will look at it, and your idea could become a set. Like the person who created this bird, the Doctor Who TARDIS, were able to get their sets made. Everything is awesome. I mean, you can't really talk about Lego anymore without the Lego movie, and there's just fun facts about the movie itself. We have Batman's movie. So again, we're moving away from the bricks in the box, the screen time. And then we have the Ninjago movie, which was coming out really close to this book. And then how there's even more. You've got the Freemakers, how it's actual original story created by Lego itself. How they had this Lego series is actually claymation. It wasn't Lego bricks, it was claymation. And then we talk about Pixels and the video games they've created, and how they've been, even though we think of like TT games right now and all those Lego games, they've actually making for a long time, and not just the TT games that we know. There's buildable worlds, there's like different computer systems have had them over the years. And then we've got the Dimension series, and there's a whole couple pages devoted just to Dimensions and what it was like in creating. And then we go back to the Smart Build with the Mindstorm series, and how that kind of went from robotics and where that came from, and what we're building to today with the Boost series. And again, Lego's just always been involved in technology. It's not been just stacking bricks together. And then of course the Lego club that you can join, and the different mascots that have happened over the years. And then we have the art. So like, artists have, this is like a legitimate art form where artists will create art, whether it be building their own Lego masterpieces, putting them within pictures and taking them, or just like painting a bridge to look like a Lego. But the way Lego has really inspired art in our society and our world. And then we get to some top 5 bricks and clicks. Record-breaking bricks, so some of the world records that have been set, such as like the fastest time you've been built, the longest railroad track, the tallest structure. So maybe if you want to build a record, you can check out this book or go to the Guinness Book of World Records and see the different world records that people have set using Lego bricks. And then we come to our table of contents, or our index, I'm sorry. And so, again, we have the Jester here. And I really love this book. It was packed full of information. It was a lot of fun to read. I definitely highly recommend this book. Again, some things are dated because Lego is always changing and growing. But that being said, even today, 3-4 years after this book published, I still found it very fascinating and a great read.
If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe or check out some of our other videos. Until next time, let's keep building together.